Okay, so just like the first video for week 7, I want to do the same thing for the second video. We're talking about chapter 13, which is groups and teams. We want to increase cooperation and reduce or manage conflict. So, the first conversation that I want to have is the difference between groups and teams. So, pause your screen for a second and think to yourself, what is the difference between a group and a team? Are there any difference at all? And then when you think you have an answer, hit play and resume the video. So there is a difference between groups and teams. A group is defined as one or more freely interacting people who share norms, they share goals, and they have common identity. Okay, they contribute to work independently. A team, on the other hand, is a small group of people working together. They have a common purpose, they have performance goals, and they're mutually accountable for the work that's being done. So teams work together to produce results. Now, as a manager or as a leader, okay, depending on how you like to think about it, we want to manage and lead teams. Okay, there are groups at work, but groups work independently. They don't need management necessarily. We want to talk about teams. So this sort of sets the stage for the rest of the conversation. All right, there are different types of teams, which I want to talk about. There are work teams, project teams, cross functional teams, self managed teams, and virtual teams. Depending on the context of your work and what you're doing at work on a particular day or a particular project, whatever the case may be, you're going to have different types of teams. If you are a manager at a restaurant and you manage servers, that's your work team. Okay, that's a work team. If you have a special project that you're leading at work, say you work at a restaurant, you work in the kitchen, and you have a new project, you're trying to figure out how to, I don't know, make fried chicken more effectively, okay, more efficiently. That could be a project team. Cross functional teams are when, say, we have two teams that work independently, right? Different parts of a company, and then they work together to solve a problem. Self managed teams are when a group of people are together and they don't necessarily need a leader, they don't need a manager kind of at the forefront of the team. This is the case when we have teams of highly skilled professional people. And then, of course, we live in a post 19 world, so virtual teams are normal now. Okay, so in a way, we're meeting virtually here. If we were to work on a group project, you would have to conduct virtual team meetings because we're not physically in the same space. I'm not asking you to do a group meeting, just to use that as an example. All right, so there are different stages of team development that I want to talk about briefly. Okay, so no matter what type of team we're talking about, all teams go through stages of team development. And this is the Tuckman's 5 stage model. I use this a lot. So anytime that I do customized training for companies, and we talk about building teams, we talk about these stages. And usually we talk about these in just 4 stages, but your textbook talks about the Tuckman's model and includes that 5th stage. So we'll talk about each one of these just a little bit because every team goes through these 5 stages and they go through the stages in order, which is really important for managers to know. Okay, so the first stage obviously is a forming phase. This is when everybody comes together. Um, Inevitably, every time we're going to butt heads somewhere, we're going to have conflict arise. That's called the storming phase. And some managers and leaders will be upset when they hit the storming phase because they think, oh, I didn't do something right when I formed the team. That's not the case. This always happens, and it's normal. So my encouragement is always when you feel that your team is butting heads and there's some conflict arising, that's okay. It's normal. Be intentional about it and get through it because on the other side of the storming phase is the norming phase. This is when everything becomes normal. And then once things are normal and we get in the rhythm of doing our work, we can really perform. Now, the fifth stage, for some teams will never reach a fifth stage. Okay. Teams that work together for a long time, they do the same task, they can stay in the performing phase. So oftentimes when I talk to companies, I tell those managers, your goal is the performing stage, and that's where you want to live. But in some cases, we can adjourn if it's a project team, and we're just doing a project. When the project is done, we disband our team. Okay. Um, Also, it means that we can decide which members of the team that don't need to be a part of the team. That can also be a part of the adjourning phase. But we'll talk about this too. Here's a nice graphic that breaks down the Tuckman model. And it has some questions listed under each phase that lets you know what individual people are asking in that phase. And then the second question down there under the line is what you should be asking as a manager, what the team should be thinking. And as a leader, you should be encouraging your teammates to ask these type of questions and provide some solutions. Either you can provide the solution or members of the team can provide solutions. In the forming phase, people are asking, how do I fit in, right? The team should be asking, why are we all here? Okay. So if you want to be an intentional leader, I encourage you to make that known on the front end. Okay. This is why we are here. And then individually, you can even address that individual question of how do I fit in? You can go to each individual member of the team and go, this is why you're a part of the team. I think that's a great way to intentionally form teams. Like I said, storming always happens. So in this stage, teammates are asking, well, what is my role? Okay, why am I even here? Um, Teams should be asking, why are we fighting over who's in charge and who does what? And that's often the source of conflict in the early stages of team development. It's, you know, I am performing my task that I think needs to be done to achieve our goal. And then Joe next to me is doing the same thing. We don't need both of us be doing the same job. He's stepping all over my toes. It's a source of conflict for me. Um, we have to be intentional, and sometimes leadership is required to help teammates overcome these conflict. But we want to get through the storm to the norming phase, which is there in the middle. At this stage, individuals are thinking, what is my role? But now, what do the others expect me to do? Okay. Where do I logically fit into this team? What can I do to help us accomplish a goal so that it meets everybody's expectations? If each individual member of a team is thinking that way, we're on track. And then we come through to the performing stage. Individuals in this stage are asking things like, how can I perform my role to the best of my ability? How can I improve this process? Teams are asking, how can we do the job properly? How can we do it better? This is where we get into continuous improvement. If you've ever worked in the automotive industry, we're talking about Kaizen. We're talking about quality improvement. This all happens in the performance stage, and sometimes teams can live in the performance stage, and that's a great thing. Again, some teams will adjourn. If it's a project-based team, they go, okay, what's next for us? Or our work together is finished. Leaders can put a nice bow on the work that the team did and make sure that everybody understands this team won't work together in this capacity because we've accomplished our goal, right? But also, it could mean, how can we help some members of our team transition out? So, as we're making those quality improvements, you may find that you don't need 10 people on your team, you only need 8. 8 people could do the job better than 10. It's more efficient. So, how can we help those 2 members that we don't need transition out? Or maybe they're still in the storming phase, sort of. They still have conflict, and they keep bringing that up, bringing our team back to the storming phase. Can we transition them out and move on to the performing stage, right? Something else I always try to highlight when I talk about Tuckman's model is that anytime you have someone join your team, you go back to the forming stage. Everybody does. So to use the example I gave earlier, if you're a manager at a restaurant and you bring in a new server, your whole team goes back to the forming stage. And we go through all four, maybe five, of the stages of the Tuckman model. It happens every time. So knowing that means a lot. As a leader, if you know that I've brought on a new teammate, we're going to go through these four stages, maybe five. You can be intentional about how you go through those stages. That creates a really good workplace culture. And ask yourself questions like, how can I, as a manager, as a leader, build an effective team? So, some things I want to point out: collaboration is foundational. We have to collaborate to work together. That's one of the hallmarks of a team, right? We also have to build trust, because as a leader, if you don't have trust, if no one has trust for their manager, the team's not going to get to that performing stage. It's also important for leaders to set performance goals and provide feedback, and we've talked about that in some other videos and topics throughout this course. We want to develop mutual accountability and interdependence. Let's talk about this just for a second. Okay, so if you've ever been a member of a really effective team, let's use sports as an example here, right? If you've ever been a member of a really great basketball team, you know what your job is, and you know what your teammates, what their jobs are, right? That's interdependence. And we have to rely on all five members of a basketball team to accomplish our task, our goal, our mission of winning a basketball game, right? If we remove any one of those teammates, we can't do our job as effectively or efficiently. That's what I mean by interdependence. It's also important when we're talking about mutual accountability, because I'm accountable for my role and you're accountable for yours. It's a mutual accountability for my task. Um, Teams, the definition of team, to give you another definition, according to me, is when you have a group of people and every one member of the team is essential to accomplish the task of the team, which means that team composition is really important for managers to think about. Okay, because the members of your team matter. You want each member of your team to have the right knowledge and skill set to accomplish the task at hand. And we take all of this really intentional action in an attempt to manage team conflict. So there's always going to be conflict in teams. And actually, I encourage you to think about managing conflict, not removing conflict. So this is a little chart that shows you too little conflict can actually lead to inactivity. Okay, if we don't care about what we're doing, we're just coming to work and doing as little as we can to get by. We're not really engaged. That leads to negative performance down here in this lower left. Well, a little bit of conflict is okay. A little bit of disagreement is okay, because it means that uh, the work that we're doing is important to us. We're thinking about it. We're trying to do the best that we can. There's a zone right there at the top of that bell curve that's where you want conflict to stay. Okay, we want to perform at the highest level. Now, that doesn't mean that you start conflict, right? What that means is that you uh, facilitate an environment, a team atmosphere, a team culture where everybody is engaged. Conflict is naturally going to arise. It's human nature. We don't want there to be too little conflict, but we also don't want too much conflict. That gets us into like a warfare situation, and we get into this box at the bottom right. High conflict leads to negative performance too. So there's 5 conflict handling styles, which I'll put on your screen. Different managers handle conflict in different ways. And as I said in the video earlier this week, situational leadership is important because it allows you to manage conflict as you're required. Hope this is helpful. If you guys have any questions or concerns, please let me know. Thanks very much.